Okay, thanks so much for being here with me. And I'll start by asking, what's your job and how would you describe it in 3 words?
Oh, well, my job is in the past because I retired sort of years ago. But I was fellow of Lincoln College and tutor in physical chemistry and university lecturer in physical chemistry and later professor of physical chemistry. And if you want 3 words to summarize those jobs, it was education, education, and education.
Yeah, seems accurate. Yeah. So what did a day at that job look like then?
Well, when I was in employment, let's do it in 2 phases, I think. When I had my actual job, it was the typical life of an academic that one spent the day giving lectures in college, giving tutorials, because and various uh, sort of administrative jobs. As a fellow of an Oxford College, you are also on the governing body, so you take on various duties because of that. So I used to start early in the morning in order to get things done before other obligations took over, and finished in the evening. So a typical day when I was employed was the typical day of an academic. Since retirement in 2007, I've gone more or less on doing the same thing, but without the administration and without the teaching. So I spend most of my days writing books.
Yeah, great. And I think we'll touch a bit on that uh, later on if that's all right with you. So what's your favorite aspect of the job where back when you were a professor and now writing books?
Um, Not having a boss, um, being one's own master, and taking all the responsibility that entails. So I went through life really all my academic career without having a boss to tell me what to do. And since retirement, of course, uh, there's no concept of boss
Yeah.
anymore. So it's been a rather wonderful career at not having anyone telling me what to do.
Yeah. So a lot
As
of
a
freedom to do what you
and
do.
although there are disadvantages maybe in being an academic, one of the great advantages is that you are your own master or your own mistress if you're a woman, I suppose. So it was a great way of spending decades of a career.
So is that freedom sort of what drove you to enter academia in the first place? I was just wondering sort of why did you choose academia?
Oh, I don't think I realized that that would be the case. I think I entered an academic career because I just drifted into it, like most people drift anyway, and I certainly acknowledge that I drifted. But I think in the sense that there was any current on which I drifted, it was always wanting to understand and to discover and to learn. And an academic life is a life of discovering and of continuous learning. And so it's very rich intellectually. And so I have no regrets that I drifted in that particular direction.
Fantastic. And could you walk me through your career path maybe in a bit more detail back from when you were back at
Yeah.
school where
Um, well, I joined the school in 1951, long before most people were born, in fact. And I left uh, when I was 15 because for a variety of reasons, I didn't go into the sixth form. And I took a job at £4 a week um, at Monsanto chemicals, where I was a lab assistant. And I think the people there got tired of me after a year or so and suggested that I really was wasting my time and should go to university. And for in a fairly complicated way, which I didn't really need to go into, I ended up going to the University of Leicester, where I did my first degree and stayed on to do my PhD. And then after finishing my PhD, I went to, as a Harkness Fellow, to, which is a very interesting kind of fellowship because it wasn't in those days confined to sciences. So we, a group of us fellows who included ballet dancers, engineers, doctors, accountants, and authors and scientists, traveled out on the original Queen Mary. And I ended up in the University of California in Los Angeles for a year, and then came back in 1965 to my academic job in Oxford at Lincoln College and the university, and stayed there without advancement for the next 40 years. And during that time, I focused more and more on doing books. And one of the advantages of being an academic is that when you retire, you can go on as though nothing had happened. And so once I retired, I continued to write books, which I still do. So that's a summary of my career. Basically, not much happened to it.
No, I wouldn't describe it like that, but that perfectly leads me on to the next question, which is so you're very well known for your physical chemistry textbook, and now you've also published, a whole load of sort of chemistry books aimed more at the general public. What sort of drove you in that direction towards publishing more books for a less academic background as well?
It's that quest for education again. And there are two components of that. One is to light the fire, and the other is to spread the fire. And I think it was through writing textbooks which generates attitudes in young minds and so on, and shows them the beauty of science. That is really the lighting of the fire. And the spreading of the fire is really spreading the word, the beauty of science and the joy of understanding that comes through it, that also led me to write books for the general public. So I suppose it's a kind of control over people's minds that I was exercising, one over young minds to encourage them and to start them off on the trail of knowledge, and the other was spreading the word and getting the general public to enjoy the insights that I think I have.
Fantastic. And talking about young people, I was wondering whether you had any advice for people who were wishing perhaps to enter academia in sciences, but also in humanities and other disciplines.
Do what you want to, but make sure that once you've adopted a particular career path, then give yourself wholeheartedly to it. I mean, it's you need to become a professional, and being a professional means commitment, and it means certain sacrifices, but it also it brings to you very considerable rewards, that of satisfaction, that of the realization of self-development, and if you're an academic, then the excitement may be, if one is active in research, of discovering things that no one else in the world, and either now or previously, had known. And I think there's a deep joy in acquiring understanding, of novel understanding. And although I regret not spending my whole life in doing research, I have taken sort of great pleasure from coming to deeper and deeper understanding as I've written more and more. I think in a way there are three stages of learning. One is when you're a student and you pretend to learn. Another is when you're an instructor, a teacher, or a professor, and you think you understand. And then there's the final stage, maybe when you have to write it down and go public with what purports to be your understanding. And I think that's when deep understanding comes, when you have to go public with what you think you know.
That's fascinating thought, yeah. And yeah, so you mentioned research, and perhaps that wasn't the main sort of focus point of your career, but could you tell me a little bit about any research that you did do during your time at Oxford?
I did not enjoy practical work, so it was natural to drift in the direction of theoretical work, which I did during my PhD at Leicester. And really, when I was doing active research, when I did my postdoc at UCLA and came back to Oxford and developed a group there for a number of years, the work was in quantum theory. And I suppose I can summarize it by saying that one of my motivations was to look at what theoretical physicists were doing, and then to see whether the very clever techniques that they were developing could be imported into the discussion of chemistry, of chemical phenomena in general. So I dealt with a variety of molecular properties using quantum mechanics and the techniques of theoretical physics. I also had my postdoc at UCLA was in magnetic resonance. And so I collaborated with colleagues in Oxford on the theoretical interpretation of experiments that they were doing in electron spin resonance. But I think it was through the success of the physical chemistry book in particular that seduced me from doing pure research into almost whole-time writing. And I realized that I was neglecting the young minds that I'd taken on as my research group. And so I effectively closed down my research group and turned to full-time writing, which in those days one could do without being told that one shouldn't.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and that's really interesting to me, and somebody who loves physics and chemistry, and I'm hoping to carry on studying them both. So the overlap between those subjects, is really fascinating. So changing pace a little bit, what's your favorite memory from your time at Chandler's?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question, and I've been racking my brains of decades ago, and I decided that it was the very first day, and I still remember that very clearly. That late September day, a sort of bit of classic mist around, slightly chilly, certainly very damp, standing with all we new incoming pupils, which I suppose numbered about 60, on the grass, when one of the masters, and I think it was Mr. Sim, who was a rather fearsome mathematics master at the time, standing in the middle of this group of cold, young 60-year-olds, assigning us either to Form 1A or to Form 1B. And effectively, stayed with me because really it was opening up the paths that I consequently followed. So it was very powerful memory, I think, and it stays with me more than any other memory that I have of the school.
That's really interesting, really unique. Thank you. And finally, this is something that we've been asking everybody who comes on at the end. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Be nicer to other people, I think.
Yeah, I think that's something perhaps we can all take to heart from time to time.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's in many respects a lucky life with lucky moments, but one has to prepare oneself to take advantage of luck when it presents itself.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, and I wish you well in your career as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.